those sandboxes is that's where you can take your current course, you put it in there. It's, if something changes, something updates as you're building your exams, exam questions, it's a safe place to have it. And then each semester, you're not having to pull from something else, like your past semester that maybe you have to change a bunch of things to. And you can have as many sandboxes as courses you teach. So it's one of the things that I am doing for the MSL program. Each course will have its own master. I'm calling them master courses. And then that way you have one location that you change. You don't have to remember which course you recently changed on. The reason why I suggest that too is because I'm going to show you how to create a question library, which is the first step and most important step in creating quizzes. So many times we've created quizzes in Brightspace, and we just build them right away. And so then you're building the questions right in the quiz. Well, it's not saving it anywhere. So then, what I think we ran into, we delete a question from the quiz, but there's no place to find it. If it's in the master library or the question library, we can at least go back and then re-pull it, so you don't have to recreate that question all over again. And so I'll show you some really great features with that. I figure I'll cover multiple choice questions, essay questions, and then there's also a way of creating sections, which is what I'm going to start with. One of the cool things about the sections is I've seen on a lot of exams that I've built in ExamSoft is you have a hypo that then refers to multiple choice questions underneath. When you create these sections, you can actually build that hypo in the section description and then add the multiple choice questions underneath it. So we're not having to repeat that hypo in every single question as we go through. So the hypo will show at the top of the page and then each one will drop, the questions will drop below. This is also great in case you're changing up your questions or you might use the same hypo but you have different questions that you might want to use over different exams. So this is kind of just a way of keeping it all organized and then using your question library for developing midterms or exam reviews, whatever you want to do, but it'll be in a master course. And then the only thing you're going to pull into your main course is what you're using for the quiz or exam. So I've got my sandbox pulled up, and to find your question library, you would go into your quizzes and exams drop down, and you're going to go into question library.
Our first step would be to have you make us a sandbox.
Yes. So if you don't have a sandbox for your course, you can do this in your current courses, and we can get that sandbox built.
Okay.
And then what we'll do is we'll take you this semester's course, we'll dump it into that sandbox, and then that's what we'll create for your master course. So yes, if you don't have a sandbox, email me the courses that you want a sandbox for. I'll get those created. You'll see me in those courses as the department coordinator. That will help me to help you to keep it organized, or like Bernadette with our groups and our different things
as they go along.
We can quickly set up those templates and then easily pull those into the current course. So yes, you're going to go into quizzes and you'll go into question library. We can ignore what I already have in here because this is where I was playing around with it. But the first thing that you would want to do is create a section. Now, like I said, the different great things about this is you can use it multiple ways. In each of our subjects, we may have questions on different topics. So you can use the sections for topics. So if you have personal injury, tort, contracts, whatever specific item topic that you want to cover, you can create a section and then drop all your questions, essay, multiple choice, all of those in there. So then as you're going through your course that I want to have this many questions on this topic, this many questions on that topic. You can easily identify them. Or you can use this as putting the hypo and then all of the multiple choice underneath. So all you do is you're gonna just do your title, say torts. The section text, this is where you would put that typo if you're gonna use multiple choice questions underneath it. Otherwise, if you're not doing that and you're just using this as like a topic holder for your questions, then you're just gonna hit save. And what you're gonna see then in your question library is you now have this section of torts. When you go into there, you would click into torts, and this is where then you would add your questions. Now, no need to worry if you create a question and you haven't created these sections before, you can actually create these sections now and move your questions around and into the different topics that you want. So with the multiple choice, and we'll start off with a multiple choice question. You're just gonna click new, and you're gonna click on multiple choice question. It defaults to four answers. One of the things that I do want to recommend is I have seen questions where the answer is all of the above. Be careful when you're saying all of the above, just because if you accidentally hit randomize your answers, which means it's all the same 4 answers, but they might be in a different order. All of the above is not always the last question. So you might want to say all answers are correct, or none of the answers are correct. So that's just one of those wording things, and sometimes you don't realize that you click that button, which is right here at the bottom. Randomize the order.
Is that good practice to randomize the order? I never have done that.
That's going to be completely up to the instructors. With it being in bright space, once you click like answer B is correct, then if answer B is answer D, then you're going to know that the students answered that correctly. It depends on how you're going to do your exam review or a midterm review. If you're answering your multiple choice questions, I've seen faculty who will say, well, answer B was correct, and then read answer B. But if they're using randomized, then they're not going to want to, answer B isn't going to be always the correct one. It's whatever the answer is. So it's completely up to you. If you're doing a take home, I do suggest doing the randomized, or because then one student can't take the test and say, I answered A, B, D, E, because then the next student's just going to go in and start, if they're clicking that, it's not the same answers. So to create a multiple choice question,
so I have a question.
yeah,
So where it says short description, that won't show to the students, is that correct?
short description.
So at the top above the text, question text, it says short description. Oh, mine is.
Are you still in this section?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. So we're
So just leave this section and then I go here, multiple choice. And, anyway, short description.
Oh yeah, yours does look different than mine.
Yeah.
Let me
I didn't want to tell them, this is about complaints or something, so.
Oh, right,
But
yeah,
it's good
no.
just for me.
It would be, oh, yeah, see that, I didn't have that. I have it hidden on mine.
Okay,
So under options, the little options button, you can have that removed. They won't see that.
okay, good.
Um,
And I would know, it would tell me, maybe complaints this issue or something, I
Right.
don't know.
And I would just make sure though, that on your options, that is unclicked for the students. You'll be able to see it, but just to make sure that they don't see it.
Right,
Now with the options as well, if you're doing this as a self-assessment where you want students to take these as a practice, you can add feedback on here, which then if they get the answer incorrect in the feedback, or either answer correct or incorrect, when they're getting their scores back and looking at it, they will have your immediate feedback. This is why this answer is incorrect. This is why another answer might have been better than this one. So you can add that. It depends on how much time you want to take into it, but if you're giving it to them for review or practice, that might be something to help them with that formative assessment that as you're going through to get them to that final exam. So then you can see on the other side, it's showing you what the question's going to look like when the students take it. You do always need to make sure that the correct answer is checked. With the multiple choice questions, I know that there are a few, and I think Mike, you did it in ACJ where there's multiple correct answers. They have to choose. There's a different
multi-select, is that
yes,
the one?
multi-select is the one that you would use for a question like that. And then you just click save. So then when you go back under your section, you'll see that your multiple choice question is there. For essay questions, where it's just written response are the essay ones for the longer responses. The short responses, obviously you just want something very short.
Is there like a character limit on the short answer ones? I don't really know. I'm just thinking that maybe the best practice is always to use written response, whether you just see.
It is what I suggest. Because typically for the short answer ones, I will say like a sentence or two is your short answer. And I'll show you with one of the things with the extended response or the written response.
I think with the short answer, you can write the correct answer. So if
For auto grading purposes?
yes, so like if I want to say the intent required to establish murder is, and they write purposefully, and I can do it, there's something in there that allows it to like capitalize or not capitalize.
Yeah.
I'm not certain whether it could get purpose and not purposely.
Oh, I use that in a negotiation class, when I did short answer, wording answers.
Yeah.
If they did not get it word for word, I mean, including plural versus singular,
Yeah.
they marked it wrong.
Yeah.
On the automatic grade, I just went through and obviously fixed all of it, but the automatic grading would only do an exact copy of my answer is correct.
Can you stop that from being published though? Like if they answer it wrong, can it not?
I don't know, I just remember the first quiz I did, all my students were like, it says I got 7 out of 20.
Yes.
I'm like, okay.
We put a note on it in LARW that says, it's going to auto-grade. Answers will be reviewed by your professor. So
Yeah.
don't give credit for close, because yeah, they get 7s out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because what it's auto grading, they'll immediately get the score on is the multiple choice.
Mhm.
So yes, that's.
Is there a way to prevent that?
You can just have it not auto grade and release the auto grade to them. But I mean, the quizzing tool does automatically grade that multiple choice section, and then when you go in and do your extended response or your essay grading, then we'll show you if we have time. If not, we'll do another one, or I'll add another video and send it out on how you would then go in and grade those and change your grades, so then it updates.
I have one more question about the multiple choice. If we randomize, is there any way that we can then learn how many people missed the same question and got the same answer?
Yes, there's reports that I can run for
That they
you.
can do all of that.
And it's definitely something that I'm planning on doing whether it's another video or we do another brown
Right,
bag.
but that can
Closer.
be done.
Yes.
It's not like that's lost forever.
No. We do have the ability to run those reports as well. So with the long written response essay ones, I would say to use the customized response box. It's kind of like when you look at something and you see a small box, you think it's got to be a short answer. You see a long box, you know that it's supposed to be a longer box. When you do the longer box, I mean, it will extend for the students as they're writing. It's not going to cut them off as they're writing that response. But some students, and Melissa and I have run into it where Josh and I have run into it a lot with ExamSoft. If the hypo's up here and they're only seeing this small box down here to type in, it, for whatever reason, causes panic attacks. So when you extend that box under the customized response box, it will give a longer box for them.
Is there a way to make that the default setting?
It is not the default setting, but it's just, as you're going in and you're typing in your essay, or like your questions, you can just quickly put that in. I mean, if it's, yes.
Sorry, I should have finished you after. But ExamSoft is locking down their whole computer so they can't use Microsoft Word. Wouldn't we suggest that they would open Microsoft Word and like type the whole thing in Microsoft Word anyway, because that feels normal and comforting?
We're gonna be using Respondus. I mean, you can make it where they can open their computer and not use Respondus on the exams, which would be more like an open book exam. For those closed book exams like we would use for ExamSoft, Respondus is gonna lock down.
Oh, so
the browser.
they won't be able to use Microsoft Word, so they do have to type right in this box.
Correct.
To the box size.
And I'm sorry, this is for the spring that it's Respondus is gonna be used, or is that like next level phase?
So all first year courses are going to be required to build their exams in Brightspace this semester.
The reason for that is both financial and practical. Partially financial because the fewer students we have using it, the better. But partially practical. If we don't ever have to enter the 1L students into the system, then we don't have to do that work next year. We're going to try to convert slowly to all Brightspace, and largely it's because of what Misty was referring to. The Respondus monitor that locks down the computer is basically doing the same stuff that ExamSoft used to do for us, and we were paying a ton for ExamSoft. So,
Is Respondus in here?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, so we'll get to that, I think.
The other thing that is great that they have just launched on Brightspace for the students that we accommodate, there is, it's built in Read Loud or Loud.
Yeah,
It-
allow, yeah.
But we have students that either need readers in their exams or they use pens in their exams. Brightspace has an automatic reader for those built in. And it's built into, the content is built into the exams. So it helps those students that have that accommodation. And we don't miss it. Or if we don't have a printed exam. Mike, is it true that the new bar exam isn't going to be, or the new practice for the bar exam is not getting a hard copy?
I don't know if they've made a determination finally on that. I don't think they had a hard copy when they did that practice next gen thing, but I'll check with Zach to make sure. Do you remember if they did? I don't think they did.
So I don't know if we'll still do hard copies on exams, if you're building them in ExamSoft, or you'll just do it this way. I know that students are more comfortable with the Brightspace because most courses are using it for at least content, so that they know how to move around with it. One thing I forgot to mention during your multiple choices, there are times where, right now it's all just default to, it's 1 point per question. But you can change your point. So if your essay questions are worth 50 points and your multiple choice questions are worth 2, you'll want to make sure that you change your point values here. So then when you preview these, this is what the question would look like for the student. So they have this very long box to enter their question.
Is there a way to do a split window so that the call of the question like remains on it and you get to type next to it, or is that not something that's available?
We'll look at that when we go to build the quiz
Okay.
and see if that option is there.
Okay.
So those are at least the two kinds, the two different types of questions that we use most. There's true and false, multiple choice, multi-select, the written response, short answer, multiple short answers, fill in the blanks, matching order, ordering, and figures. There is also a way of adding photos to the text, to your questions, which we do have faculty who will add. I think Camilla is big on that with the trademarks course that she, or fundamentals of IP that she teaches. So if there's a picture that is significant to the question, you can add those in there.
So I just got confirmation, FYI, from ASP that the field test of the next-gen bar was entirely digital. They did not have a printed copy. Now it's the next-gen bar, which has adapted and won't be coming into play until 2027, but something to think about for the future, whether we want to print it or not.
So, yeah, I mean, it'll save time, and if you're still finessing your exam, you can not have to do that print, but then, that's completely up to you. It's, so then if you're gonna create a quiz, when you're in your question library, so we'll say that this is test midterm. This is where you can set a due date. So if we're gonna have our midterm on Friday, you can set it to the exact parameters that you want to do. So if you were going to do it during class, you're going to want to put the day that it's due for that test date, or that you're going to give the exam, and at the end of class, or however long that you're doing it.
Misty, will that still allow like the accommodated students with extra time turn it in, even if it's like after the time?
It will, and that's a good point. With accommodated students, we've already gone in to all of your bright spaces, and if a student has an accommodation, you'll see like a little gear next to their name. We've added their accommodated time in. So before, we used to have to go in and give them special access with additional time. That's no longer needed. So once they're in and we have them set on your roster, and you'll be able to see it when you look down your class roster with a little gear, it'll automatically give them that additional time for the exam.
One challenge I'm having with this is I've asked my students who want it or accommodated to let me know to start early. I'm doing a quiz with them on Thursday, because I'm gonna go over the answers like after the quiz is over. But the accommodated students are, like, if they start with the regular students, we'll be able to keep on going beyond the amount of time, right?
Right, and
While I'm
then,
telling everybody the answers.
yeah, for the in-class quizzes, those students should definitely start early.
Yeah.
Or if it's a quiz that doesn't need to be taken in class, but you're gonna plan to discuss in class,
I wanted to take it in class because I got a lot of feedback that people were upset last time.
Okay.
Quizzes were not in class.
I was gonna say, because, that would be the only way to then, other than those accommodated students, they would have to start early, and if they've got class beforehand, it might be, if they have 50% additional time, it might be hard for them to start it early. So with those in-class ones, or something that you're gonna discuss in class, those are tough.
Yeah.
Can you set it for them to start earlier?
We can, yeah, your special, and I'll show that,
Availability,
yeah, it's down during,
yeah, that you just need.
it's after we build it. So, as you add add existing questions, this is where we used to go in, most of us would go in and just create our new questions. Now we're gonna go in and we're gonna import it from, or browse our question library,
Oh, that's right, okay,
Yep.
I'm getting it now, okay.
Yep, you're gonna browse your question library, and then this is where you can, if you want all your course questions in there, or if you want all of your essay questions, or all of your multiple choice questions, you can click on it, or you can extend it and only pick the certain questions that you want. And then when you do import, once those questions are built, and you hit click, your quiz can be built, or your exam can be built that fast. So over here in timing, you're gonna want to set your time limit for however long the students will receive for the exam. If it's, for one class time or half of the class time, say you've got 45 minutes that you want to give them to answer those questions. You can break it down where you can add a break after each section. So this is a great idea when you're doing that hypo with the multiple choice questions underneath, because then the students can scroll down, and then they can scroll back up, look at that hypo again, scroll back down, and answer the multiple choice. So you would add a break after each section. You can add it after one question per page, but then they would have to, if there's a hypo, go back, a couple pages. Or 5 questions. Or you can do all questions at one time and they just keep scrolling until they're done. We did have this question when we were building an ExamSoft. Don't want the students to go back to the previous question. How do we do that? We can do that now in Brightspace. We can prevent them from going back. So you would just click prevent from going back. Always make sure that you've got the disable email, instant messages, and alerts within Brightspace. What that's going to do is prevent anything from coming, that distraction. Now, when we do Respondus, it is going to do that lockdown on it. Attempts and completion. I mean, this is pretty. This is where you can take off the auto-publish the results. If you don't want them to immediately know how well they did. So they won't know that I've got 6 out of whatever, multiple choice, and now I've got the essay to, you just unclick the box.
Right at the bottom there is another one I've used. When displayed at the bottom, you can set it so that it'll display all the questions with the answers. If you were giving them like a quiz, a 4-minute assessment, you wanted them to be able to see it again. If you just leave it at no questions, they can't ever see it again, so you have to click that little box.
Wait, I'm sorry, what?
So if you go into the quiz result displays, if you're giving a take-home, and you don't want anybody to see any answers until after everybody has taken the exam. So maybe you're giving them 3 or 4 days. Then you would add a display result. And then you can say, display the answers on this date at this time. So everybody gets it at the same time. No one's still taking the quiz or the exam or the midterm.
Oh, okay.
So that was, you clicked on customize quiz results display, that's, have you got there? I hadn't done it that way before.
Yeah.
And if you, like, for example, if you wanted them to be able to view their essay answers, which one of these would be the option?
So what I would say then is, I would do a future, like the customize, and do the future results after you've had a chance to grade everything.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you give yourself a date or when grades are due, the day that grades are due, then you, on that date, could open it up, and then they would be able to see their feedback.
With learner's response. Okay, I got it.
Yep, absolutely. So availability and conditions, when do they want them to start? If you're doing it over multiple days, when do you want them to end? Release conditions, we use this in ACJ. They couldn't start the quiz until they completed, X, Y, and Z, or manage special access. This is where we click if we have a student that we want them to start early. So make sure that it's always the top one that's selected. We accidentally once clicked the second one, and only the students that had accommodations could find the exam, and everybody else couldn't. So it's always the top one, because then you're only giving access to the people who are on the list that you've clicked. So when you're allowing selected users special access, this is where you can go in and you can change the date and the time availability. So if you have someone who they start accommodated students, you've got them at 50% additional time, you can open it up 45, or what, my math, this is why I don't do math. Open it that much earlier for them, or, even a half an hour, give them a 15-minute window, because some might not all be able to start it right at that exact time.
Can I ask a silly question about starting someone early? I mean, what's the rest of the class doing when the person started early? Are you still lecturing, or are they like off to the side and starting early?
No, it's before the class starts,
Okay.
rather than them continuing while I'm lecturing.
Okay.
That's my plan.
So the
Okay.
people who get more time
Start early.
start them early, and the other students haven't even come to class.
Okay, that makes sense, sorry.
And then, so it's basically, you've got to plan your timing on, do you want this quiz to be at the end of class, or do you want it to be at the beginning of class? If you want it
Well,
to
I
be
guess
at-
for this, you just have to do it at the beginning.
Well, you can, unless you plan on discussing your exam, your question answers at the beginning of the next class.
Yeah.
Then those students you don't have to worry about giving them earlier access to it. They can just keep going.
No,
Now,
I'm
most-
not worried about that, I'm worried, because I'm gonna be doing a midterm, I have a 2-hour class, and the midterm can be in class, and if there are people who need, if I do like a 90-minute midterm, and there's someone who needs an extra 30 minutes, so,
And those students should be reaching out to Melissa,
Mhm.
because a lot of those students will have to be in a separate room,
Yeah.
okay.
because it's distraction reduced, it's not just,
Yeah, okay.
99% of them, it's distraction
Yeah.
reduced, along with additional time. So they are, and should be in a different area, so that they're not, as
Okay.
students are coming and going.
Yeah.
And with that, those students, with your exams and everything, Melissa and I can go in and make sure that this special access is set, because she'll be working with them to set their schedules, and we'll be able to do that. You won't have to worry about it. But that's for those in-class opportunities that you might be. All right, then when you save your quiz, you want to make sure, you don't have to make it visible to users right away, but make sure that before it's time to come up, that you make it visible. This is one of those small little keys that we sometimes forget, and then the students are like, oh my gosh, the quiz is supposed to open, I can't find it. And it's just simple enough as, oops, we forgot to unhide it. The great part about having it hidden though, is if you're still adding to it, if you're still changing it, you just really don't want them to see that it's there and that, doom and gloom, that, oh my gosh, we got this test, we got this quiz, then they can immediately, you can keep it hidden. This is also good too, when we're pulling those quizzes from your sandboxes into your main course. We'll keep it hidden for at least a little bit of time while we're tweaking it, and then make it available. Now, at the very top of the page is you'll see the lockdown browser dashboard. When you go into that, and in the back of the packet that I gave you, everything that I'm going through quickly is also in this packet, along with a lot of more information. But on the back of the packet is the university's best practices and considerations, and it's about using the lockdown. The university still uses the webcam, which I know that we are not planning on using the webcam. So what you do when you are setting for your test, you would click on your test and you're going to click on settings. So this is the test that you're going to use lockdown browser on. My screen's not making it. Okay, let's try a different one. Okay, it would not let me get down to that. So you're gonna wanna require a lockdown browser.
So this is a stupid question, they all already have this.
Yes,
So-
they all have this. This is whether you wanna require it or not. So this is, if you want an open book exam and you don't want them to not be able to get to anything outside of Brightspace, or you want them to be able to toggle out of the exam to go look up things, then you're not gonna mess with lockdown browser. If it's a closed book exam, you're gonna want lockdown browser on. Mike and Melissa, this is where we can set passwords like we did in ExamSoft. I don't think we, for ABA purposes, need that, because they already have to have the multi-factor authentication to get into Brightspace, so they're already proving who they are. So,
And because the exam already has a set start time, they aren't able to start early, that's my only concern, right?
correct,
Yeah.
correct. This would just be if we want them to have an extra pass, like an extra level. So that's something that we can discuss.
Yeah.
Now, do we have to anonymize it somewhere so that when we're creating the final, we don't see who it is? Because we grade it in here too, right?
Yes. And that is,
Anonymity's overrated.
what did you say, Nika?
Last night when we did lesson, I said, I was like, wow, and then I looked, I was like, oh my gosh, I was so surprised by the answer. So it was nice that I did.
Was it a surprise?
Yes, she flew it out the water, and the whole time I just thought she wasn't paying attention.
And you knew who it was?
I didn't, the whole time as I was grading, I assumed it was someone else, but then once I graded it, I looked at it, I was really surprised. Happily surprised.
It's very nice. It's always nice when you're surprised. I wish everybody would do that.
Are we still in the lockdown browser?
No, I got sidetracked on the anonymity. I've gotta look for that, but I will make sure that I get that out to you guys, sorry.
Yeah, we'll go to the other, just before we grade.
Yes,
Yeah.
We need to know about it.
we will make sure that that is,
It's not the May.
Yeah, really.
right,
I'm trying to lock down the quiz for.
Yeah, oh, let's do that.
okay. So in the dashboard, in your lockdown browser, you will choose the quiz that you want to lock down. You're gonna require the lockdown browser for the exam. Under proctoring, don't require the proctoring for the exam, that's the camera. So make sure that that one is not checked. Under advanced settings, this is where you can choose any one of these selections. You can lock them into this browser only. So completely secure, they can't go anywhere. Students can now take their exams on iPads if they need to, if they have an issue with their computers and we have the computers crash, which we have multiple times during exams, they can just pick up right space on their iPad and be able to still take their exam. You can allow access to specific external domains, and that'll, when you click on this will let you know. So this is, you would click this if your course uses an e-textbook. You can include the domain of the e-textbook, so that, yes.
Has anyone had any success doing this and allowing like Westlaw and Lexis? Because I think we haven't ever tried a locked down, because ExamSoft wouldn't have let us do a research exam locked down, ExamSoft was too locked. I'm just kind of wondering.
I mean, you can, what you might want to do is,
Test it,
You
lock
guys
down
do it-
Sarah's computer and see what
right,
Sarah can
but
get to.
add
Yeah.
in here,
That sounds fun.
Lexis.com
I like the
or
idea of locking
Westlaw.com.
Sarah down. Okay.
you know, whatever the publishers and stuff are. And then that will at least allow them to get to those domains only. But this wouldn't allow them, if you're allowing them to use notes, some students ask, well, can I just access it since it's on my computer instead of printing it out? They would have to print those out.
That's what, so there's no way to do one sheet of notes or just your outline. They've got to print that out.
Correct.
They can't get it elsewhere.
Otherwise, you would
Right.
open it up and allow them,
It's either all or nothing. You can't just access one file.
right.
But the button you need to click is the second one there, right? Lock students into browser. That's
Yes.
what actually locks things down.
Some have asked for calculators, and do not click the enable printing from this toolbar, because the way it's set up now, they can't do any screenshots or prints or anything. The only way that they're gonna get a copy of it is if they take their cameras. And you'll be able to, I mean, that's easy to track down if someone's sending photos. But for our purposes, we don't want the monitor. This is the proctoring monitor, because this is where it makes them pick up their computer and scan the room and put up their IDs and.
And we don't need that for a traditional exam that is still happening in person, that we will be proctoring in person. That's redundant anyway.
Yeah. So they would at least, I mean, if they get a page of notes front and back, they just have to print that like that. But at least they can get to their ebooks, which is nice. So then you just save and close. And maybe it'll save.
Something's going on with the internet right now.
I was gonna say, but when you save and close it, then when you go back to your lockdown browser, as you're going through and looking at your different exams, you can see which ones. This screen is, this column is the camera. This one is where just the browser itself. So then you can quickly, when you're looking at your lockdown browser dashboard, know which courses you've got that set up properly for or not. So that's the quick how to build your exams and set up the security in a nutshell. Is there any questions? Like I said, I plan on following up with tidbits, backup, grading anonymously. And if there's any other topics that you want me to send out how-tos, please send them my way. Yes.
There's always this thing like, do you want this to appear in the grade book? I don't know what that means, so I always say no, but would that be helpful, and what is that?
That is, with online courses, a lot of the online courses, we do use grade books so that students can follow how they're doing. If you're not planning on publishing your grade in Brightspace and only publishing it when you send it, you don't need to create a grade item.
Okay.
That's just if.
I'm sorry, Dave.
If there's
I'm afraid I
multiple,
can't do that.
if you have multiple different assessments, that you're using, and they have like 20% of their grade is in quizzes and another part's in discussions. Some students like to see how they're doing. point-wise, just so that they know. But if you're not using it and that's not how you grade, you can just ignore it and it won't go.
I can use it though, and it's not like it goes to the registrar's office.
No,
It's
this is
just
strictly, yep,
It's just for me, it's not like I can adjust it and,
absolutely. I
Can
mean,
you
the
hide it from
students,
the students and still use it, or if you use it, the students will see it?
if you use it, the students will see it.
Okay. Then
Yes.
Yep. I'm like a hard grader the first time around, and then I stop and get softer. I don't want them to get the hard day.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why you don't have to release your feedback on your exams or the scores until, I would say, even until exam, like, grades are due. Because that's when most students don't find out how they did anyways. And then they can, just keeping in mind though, that you'll want to make sure that your class is open past that time. Because once the class deadline closes, so like all of our classes are set up. All of our classes have an end date. So if you're gonna post your feedback on the 16th of February, but your class ended on the 13th, they're not gonna see it. They won't even know that the feedback is there. So you can quickly go in and just do your end date to the start of the next semester, like or if you want to do exam reviews through only a certain time frame, you can keep it open until the end of that time frame. So that way they can go in and see what their feedback was, see what they need to talk to you about, and then the class will close and they won't have access anymore. Any other questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mrs.
I'm sure we'll have more questions when we actually get to the
Oh,
exam.
yeah, but I mean, this is, I really like the question library.
Mhm.
I think that's gonna be very beneficial as, we move forward. And if, as you're building the questions, what's the best way to set this up? Don't hesitate to send me an email and we can play with it. I can play with it in my bright space, my toolbox, sandbox, and see which one looks best. And then we can go from there.
one thing I found is if I do it in the library, which I'm not consistent in, and then I change it in the quiz, when I go to save it, it'll say, do you want to change this question in the library as well or not? And which is really great. So, but if I just create it in the quiz, then the changes don't get saved for perpetuity.
Didn't we deleted a question and then we couldn't find it because
It wasn't in the library.
it wasn't in the library.
Yeah, I mean, I really need help from you, but
So, yeah, it was, by putting it there, by building them in that library, you at least always have some sort of record or go back. And then what's nice too is then when we get those reports back and we look back and, how the students do on this question, maybe it needs to be worded a little bit differently or changed up a little bit. You don't have to recreate it. We can just go back into that question library and tweak it from there. And by having it in a sandbox, then you always have that master file of it.
Thanks so much, very helpful.
So don't forget to send me an email if you guys want a master sandbox for your course and which courses. I'll get those set up and then, your current course, or even if it's from fall course, I can get those pulled in. And then that way, as you're working for fall semester over the summer, you can work on that master course. And then when the
Video.
course for fall 2024 goes live, then all we would do then is take what's in your master sandbox and pull it in and it's set to go.
that's awesome. I was just gonna email you and ask you if you could do that.
Yes,
And
yes, I
then
can,
you
just
said
send.
yes.
Yep, just send me an email and I'll get it all set up for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I was talking to Melissa about Melissa, you need access to all of the course pages so you can troubleshoot during the program, right?
I can add you guys as secondary instructors for those that have.
Is that a pain to do? I'm trying to think of a better way to
I guess that's what we have to do, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, that's the only
Melissa-
way,
That's the only way we can troubleshoot live, you know, if there's a problem
right,
arising.
and by
while
putting
we're
you guys as
processing.
instructors. Because right now, Josh and I are the only ones that are department coordinators,
Uh-huh.
and that's